Ad Chats with Frank Palmer, the marketing, media, and communications talk show.
Hello, Martine.
Hello, Frank. How are you?
Good. It's good afternoon. I know it's an afternoon there.
It is. It is. It's mid-afternoon. This reminds me of when I worked for you.
Yeah. What's the weather like there today? It's beautiful here in Vancouver.
We've had a lot of rain in Toronto. It's off and on right now. I think it is raining.
Well, I know from this time of the year for you has always been very busy, and I guess you get right into the beaches festival, and
Yeah, right now, a lot of summer events, a lot of preparation because we activate a TIFF as well, which is
yeah.
coming up. We launched a number of attractions as well. We just launched one 2 days ago.
Well, that's great.
Hmm.
I know you're busy. I know when we were together with DDP at one point in time, you were always running from one event to the other. And but I wanted to thank you today for doing this nabs ad chat with me. And you are the very first public relations company that I've interviewed.
Well, I'm honored. Thank
Yeah,
you.
well, I am too, because I know that we've always had a great rapport with you over all the years, and I've been very proud of you and what you've accomplished. As you know, these NABS ad chats are basically to raise awareness and raise funds for NABS, and more than ever because we're going through the very different changes in our world, particularly with
Yeah.
IA and just the industry in general. So obviously, hopefully through these interviews, it'll bring more awareness to NABS and the needed dollars. So are you ready to start our interview?
I am. Let's go. And by
Let's
the
go.
way, I believe that NABS is a very, very worthwhile, necessary organization.
Thank you. Well, I know that you were born in Morocco.
I was born in Casablanca. Yes, I was.
Very interesting. As you said, I'm sure you have some interesting stories about Casablanca, and
Yeah.
get into that. I just wanted to show a few pictures, which I thought were quite interesting.
Uh-oh. What is
No, 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 not at all. But the pictures actually I found on the web, and you know they're quite beautiful. Actually, it's very
Yeah.
very interesting country. I was close to Morocco at one point in time because I was vacationing and I was in Gibraltar.
Oh, yes, I've been to Gibraltar. All
And
the movies on the mountains.
you can see it just on the other side. It's
Yeah.
almost like a stone's throw.
Yeah.
And we all know that this next picture wasn't you, but because you were born in Casablanca, there's a picture I wanted to show. And I think, is that you in the picture there of Casablanca?
Yes, that's me.
Yeah. Well, that was that world premiere of that was in 1942, and it won Best Picture of the Year. I also understand that you speak French and English. Is that
Yeah. In Morocco, you speak either French or Spanish as your native language. French is my first language. And when I came to Canada, I learned English.
and your family resides in France or Morocco?
No, we don't have any. Well, we have a few family members in Morocco, but most of my family now is split between Toronto and some in Montreal and Paris, Toulouse. Um, the outskirts of Paris is Versailles. We have a lot of family there. I was just there 3 weeks ago.
Oh wow. When did you come to Canada?
I came to Canada in the 60s,
In the
in
60s.
in the late 60s. Yeah.
Wow. Do you have any brothers or sisters?
I have a brother, Alan.
And what schools did you go to? Did you go to schools here or did you go to schools there?
I went to schools there. I went to schools here. My father was a professor. I also had the benefit of being homeschooled. I had a very interesting upbringing. I have my parents are both gone now, but uh, wonderful parents, very nurturing. It was all about academia.
Yeah.
And an interesting tidbit is um, 5 or 6 family members are all in public relations. So I think I fell into it very naturally.
Yeah, well, actually, the other thing you share with family members is a birthday the same day as mine.
We share a birthday.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Virgos, and
Virgo.
September 2nd, and very, very different years, of course. I'm yeah. What courses did you take and where to learn public relations skills?
You know, it was an interesting trajectory for me because of my family being in PR and always wanting. I had a passion for communications and the arts, and I loved storytelling. So I fell into it very, very naturally. I started in entertainment PR. Actually, I was in-house at a number of live entertainment venues and for artists in the 80s. One of them was called the Club Blue Note, which was a very, very famous venue. And
We'll talk about that in a bit. Yeah, you go right ahead.
was there. And then I managed PR for a number of artists as well. So I became a quasi agent and a PR practitioner. And then eventually I decided, as much as I liked entertainment, that I felt there were more opportunities for me at agency. And I worked at one of the very first agencies in Canada. It was called the Hilda Wilson Group.
Yeah.
And gosh, I'm going to say that was in the 80s. That was definitely in the 80s. And I stayed with agency up until DDB.
Wow.
Well, it was then Carter Gray.
Well, I know that PR is a very different skill set than advertising, and obviously they go hand in glove. But there's a number of skills that what you had to acquire to be very good at it. One of them is that you have to be very trusting because there's a lot of confidential that you work on, and more than any other skill, communication is one of the most important. And writing ability, understanding social media more so today, attention to detail. Organizational skills, problem solving, writing skills, and maybe the most important, but honesty is really probably one of the most important that
Yes.
you have because you got to be trusted.
Yeah, you got to be trusted. You're an ambassador for your client's brand, and you hold a lot of confidences. You craft their story. You tell their story. So there needs to be a lot of trust there, which is something that you always told us at DDB, that we're in the relationship business. It's still in some of our decks today.
I know.
Mhm.
I still remember coining that phrase at one point in time, and but also I think one of the things that a lot of agencies need to spend more time on, and I know you would spend all your time on, is you got to have great listening skills.
Yes, absolutely.
Too often, you got two ears and one mouth, and too often one mouth speaks more than the two ears you're listening. So I know that, Martine, over all the years in my experience working together, you've had those skills and many, many more, and whatever assignment that we worked on together. And I know that I could absolutely count on you and your team and have no worries. And we have another gentleman here who wants to say a few words about that too. So would you play a little video here for us?
What's it like to work with Martine? Wow, let me tell you, it was inspiring to work with Martine. Her passion for excellence, creative energy, and commitment to generating results drove everything we worked on together. I admired how she provided clear, considerate leadership to her team of high performers. When we took on a client project, I always knew the team would perform faster, higher, and stronger under her direction. She brings out the best in her colleagues. But Martine wasn't always all business. No, she always brought a sense of humor and kindness to the office and helped us find fun and levity in a demanding environment. And we loved her for that. I always enjoyed working and winning with Martine. What did clients like about Martine? Martine is a consummate PR professional. Clients quickly know they're in great hands when they meet her and soon come to trust her. She delivers better ideas and even better results, most often exceeding expectations. Her clients love that. What did her staff have to say about her? Martine's teammates have always held her in high regard. What I've heard is that they learn a lot working with her and grow professionally. They benefit from her style of leadership and collaboration and become better practitioners. What's special about Martine? She's a marketing and PR specialist who thrives on storytelling. She spearheaded category-defining campaigns for a host of leading clients. She is, without a doubt, one of Canada's best PR practitioners today.
That is so sweet. That is really, oh my gosh. Thank you, Frank. That's to Rob McLean as well. Worked together many, many years, but that's very touching.
Yeah, well, I wanted to have somebody talk about it other than just me, because I feel the same way about you and we've stayed in touch for all these years, even though I'm gone from DDB and so are you.
Yeah.
Did you talked a bit about your career. I know that you brought it up, but about launching nightclubs and being involved in the club Blue Note. And I know you said that, and I was just wondering, I got a picture here of Club Blue Note, and we'll show that. And I know that it was known as the home to Toronto Sound, and it opened in the late 50s by a fellow by the name of Al Steiner.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at 372 and a half Yonge Street. And it was kind of a rock and roll place at the time, and played blues and Motown, and it stayed open until about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And I read where Stevie Wonder and the Supremes played there. I think I have a picture.
Yeah, so I can give you a little bit of history. It's interesting. Yeah. It's part of the fabric of this city's evolving live entertainment offering. There was the original Club Blue Note that's the picture you just showed on Yonge Street, groundbreaking. Had everybody played there, even Billie Holiday. Meant a lot to artists that were emerging in live entertainment as Canada's musical community was growing. And then in the 80s, a gentleman named Sid Markowitz, along with his partners, the Balcoos, and launched the Club Blue Note on Pears Avenue, which is Avenue Road in Davenport. And that's where I started. And it was a live entertainment venue focused on rhythm and blues. So there would be live sets and a dinner as well that was offered. It was like a dinner and show package. And they brought in R&B artists from the States, everybody from Benny King, Solomon Burke, all the greats. And George Oliver, who we call the Blue Eye Prince of Soul. He had the middle set, and he would bring on guest artists. So it turned into this a venue that everybody wanted to get into. So quickly, it became very, very, very popular, very hard to get into. And I was the hostess at the front door. So I would greet you and manage the VIP side entrance, and met to this day, I have friends and artists. It's a very tight community. And I still have friends to this day from the Blue Note days. They're called Blue Noters.
Blue Noters. Now, you took me to a club somewhere one time. Was it that club?
Oh,
remember, we had to go up the stairs, just had to walk up these big stairs. You took me and my wife at one point in time to some club. I don't know if it was that club or not.
It could be. So the Blue Note closed. Well, it changed hands, and then the original owners that I worked with, Sid Markowitz, as I mentioned, and his partners reopened it with George Oliver again in the 90s, and then it closed. So it's possible at DDB that it was still open and we went there, or maybe another club. Yeah. It was a dark cave-like
Yeah.
venue.
Yeah. Well, I do remember staying out quite late with you one night. I don't think I
Yes.
was there, but and you had mentioned earlier that you were an agent and managed a number of musical artists. I mean, like who did you imagine that we might know?
There were I became Liberty Silver's manager. She's a double Juno Award winner. Um, and we embarked on a cross Canada tour and did some very high profile events in the US. I don't know if you remember some of them, but there was Star Search with Egg McMahon.
Yes, I remember that.
Uh, so
You're aging both of us now.
Yes, I know. That's why I'm being a little bit careful about how much I age myself. Um, but we worked on just a lot of different artists.
Well, I know that when during TIFF and all the different stars that you have to entertain, and remember you getting involved and meeting up with some of them, but it must have been also very demanding with all the egos that basically a lot of these people carry it. That you know.
Yeah, I think for me, why it's always been comfortable to liaise or interact with notable people is because I think it was my training, if you will, as you know, a practitioner both in the music industry that interacted with a lot of talent, a lot of celebrities, and you become comfortable, you become familiar. And to this day, we do a lot with celebrities um, and people of note, dignitaries, politicians, etc. And I always feel a sense of comfort there. And I think it's because I had the benefit of so many years um, of either managing the brand or protecting the artist. And I think it's something that is very just comfortable for me right now.
Yeah.
It doesn't make me nervous. They're human just like everybody else.
I think what you took on, was it your first role at Heather Reed and Associates, or was it the PR firm of Carter Gray? Where did that?
You mean when I eventually ended up?
Yeah, yeah,
When I started, it was Heather Reed and Associates, and they were the integrated PR partner discipline, if you will, for it was Carter Gray. You're quite right. And then that uh, then rebranded to DDB Needham.
that's right.
That's right. And then after DDB Needham, I do believe that's when we merged with Palmer Jarvis.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. So we still had to read
I'm
them.
testing you and me at the same time.
Yes.
Because I think that was the path that it went. And then when I did the DDB deal, it was in 1998. And I remember being a very, very stressful time for me because I was decided to live in Vancouver, but I was going back and forth to Toronto sometimes 2 and 3 times a month. And I can just remember getting lost in the location because they had done so many different transformations and building offices that it wasn't that big at the time. But I used to get lost in the building. I couldn't find my way out of the maze that we were there. You know, I'd
Yeah.
go. Then the Toronto people said, "Well, we'll put you at the back of the office," but I couldn't find my way out. Believe it or not. But that was an
And we had to
interesting
move
time for
forward.
me because that office was dark and very
Mhm.
old looking at the time.
Yes.
I wasn't welcomed as much as I should have been because the merge went the other way. It wasn't like I was in charge and Toronto wasn't in charge. So I think you became the managing director of the public relations. I guess it was in about 2000, the year 2000.
Yeah, so I was vice president of consumer during the Palmer Jarvis days, and then there was rebrands to DDB Canada, and then at one point, I believe it was we had Heather Reed had left,
Yeah,
and we became Benchmark Porter Novelli under Stan Ditzbalis, and then Stan and Jim Hurler at the time had a conversation, and Jim said we want our own PR practice. We are thinking we have an opportunity for a joint venture with, and we'll launch DDB Public Relations. And since Martine's been here for so long, why don't we give her the opportunity to do so? And that's when I became managing director. We launched DDB PR, and that's when we met.
Yeah, well, I think you were only 13 at the time, I think.
Yes, barely.
Well, what accounts did you work on? Do you remember any of the accounts that you worked on back then?
As when we first
Yeah.
launched DDB PR, I remember very well. It was Knorr for Unilever, soups, sauces. There was Knorr, I believe Gristle, Melba Toast as well. And we worked, I think, on it was FM Foods, Mars. I remember some of them for sure.
No, I was gone in about 2019. Was it around that time when you decided to go off on your own also?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it
And then
was.
you started your own company called Elderly and Lord Communications. And how did that come about?
How did Edery and Lord come about?
Yeah,
You know, Frank, if you looked at when I first started with, DDB, what became DDB, it had been almost 27 years, I believe. And I thought, maybe it's time to embark on my own venture. And I felt that if I hadn't done it then, I probably wouldn't. So that was the impetus for launching the agency. And I picked the pandemic. I picked a pandemic. I don't think at the time we thought it was going to be a pandemic, but there you have it. And partnered with an old friend of mine that is in PR, Victoria, that used to freelance with us at DDB as well.
yeah.
And we launched Edery and Lord, and it was, honestly, I have to say, DDB was very gracious in that we were able to come to terms, and some of the clients we were servicing just strictly in pure
Well, they
play
followed
PR.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. So that
Your
was
website, your website says big experience, big agency experience with small energy, small agency energy, intuition and ability. And it goes on to say we don't believe in one size fits all solutions. We start with what you bring to the table, examine every angle, and blend fresh ideas drawn from decades of experience. And then we use the finest tools and insights to bring your life to story to life. But again, it comes back to me, it's about having the trusting relationships with people that you've been able to build over all these years. And there's never anything I've ever heard that doesn't come back to say, well, that's Martine all over. Having that trust when people will stay with you for years and years and years. And you started with some of the staff members of DDB, if I remember.
exactly. So Keika Dasgupta, who was vice president at DDB PR, is vice president now at Edery and Lord. Paige Calvert, who you know very well. Paige working with you in the Vancouver office as director of corporate communications. She handles our client portfolio out west. She's still with us. And then Abby Diaz was at DDB, and she also came over to Edery and Lord. And then we brought on as well some new practitioners. So I love working with people that there's familiarity, there's trust, people that I've worked with for a long time. It's always like we used to say, having your crack pitch team,
Yeah.
and you're just glue. There's a glue, the way you present together, the way you find your the way you sync your niche, and how you pick up off the other. I really enjoy working with people that I've known for a long time.
Do you find a big difference between what you had part of the multinational agency and now being on your own?
Mhm. Yes, very much so.
What do you think the big differences are? What you
Yeah,
have to make more money in a big agency, but I mean, can you spend more time with clients and give them more? Or
yeah. There's pros and cons for sure. Big agency, you have the safety net, of course. I mean, obviously, we have our regular finance meetings and your projections and ensuring that you're meeting your targets. Is similar with a small agency, but it's not at that same level.
Yeah,
The overhead is not the same, and you know very well the dips, multinational like DDB. All the disciplines have to also have shared costs, so you're responsible for all of
yeah,
that. In an indie like Etery and Lord, a boutique indie, we have more creative freedom, and certainly more freedom to invest in our clients because
right.
you make the decision, and how much you might want to invest and write off maybe some time. That's a little bit more difficult, as you know.
Yes, yeah. Well, I know that you've been very successful in winning a lot of awards over the years. In fact, you've won over 130. And I remember in 2023, the IABC Gold Quill Global Small Agency of the Year Award you won. The 2023 Canadian Pacific Relationship Society Best Campaign, Creative Campaign of the Year for the Canadian Lung Association with McCann. And very impressive. I know there's probably many, many more, but it's nice to be able to have that in your portfolio when you talk with the clients.
It is, absolutely.
You've been working with some of the clients at Mercedes, and you did a Barbie, if I remember, and Dr. Seuss experience. TELUS worked with us at PS and Co. and Moet Hennessy you've had for how many years, Moet Hennessy?
15.
That's a long time. And I remember each and every year that we talked earlier about you on the TIFF account, and maybe your agent nightclub experience helped you through all of that, as I said earlier. Well, you've been in the industry for almost 40 years,
Yes.
and I've been in this industry for 60. So
Oh my God, we
during
have
that,
100 years.
yeah, it tells you that during that time you have said that you love it. You still love it as much?
Yes, I do. It's exciting and rewarding. You don't do the same thing every day.
No. And how do you feel about the industry today, and has it changed?
Has it changed greatly, Frank? There's a lot that we can discuss because PR practitioners, um, it's a discipline that involves, strategic storytelling, media relations, event management, issues management, crisis communications, social, digital. So it's all encompassing. How has it changed? Well, let's drill down. Looking at media relations activity, when in let's say in the 80s, when I was at agency, implementing a program that had media relations as its as one of the core program elements, you could craft your story, be smart about it, make sure it was timely, had supporting data, for example, a great spokesperson that was well trained. Um, if it needed to be jacked into the 24-hour news cycle, you could do that. And you more than likely could get that story in the media outlet, in the news. It's not the same today. You still need to do all of that. However, there's a shrinking media landscape. There's a lot less editorial space. There are reporters that are covering multiple beats. They're very selective in terms of what they can support. They just don't have the time, and there's not the space. And then on top of it, you more and more have a challenge in being sent, or what we call punted, to paid. And that is the paid section, the paid department of a media outlet. So once that happens, the story is dead because now you're paid. So you have to manage all of that. in order to land the story. So it's a lot more comprehensive and a lot more strategic, and it's a lot more challenging.
Well, I can tell you that I'm not sure how it relates to your business, but I know that in our business of advertising, there is less and less relationships,
Mhm.
and tougher to get into the hearts and minds of the clients because they're focused on different things. They don't have the relationship that we used to have for clients that would be with us for 20 years, 15 years. Now it's more like you're lucky to have it for 6 months. And so having a client like Moen has to see for 15 years says a lot about you. I have some questions from the audience that I want to ask. And one of them, I guess, was what we just talked about. The industry is involved and changed over the last 36 years. And what skills do you think are most important for success going forward?
I think that staying ahead of the curve for young practitioners, I do a lot of information interviews. I like to give back. I think staying ahead of the curve in terms of consumer behavior trends, technology trends, um, staying current in terms of influential voices, subject matter experts. Um, what are they saying? What could you tap into? How could that inform a story or bringing in a third party to support your story? Whether it's social or content creation featuring a spokesperson or media relations. I think that's important. I think building your own brand as well and being proactive about that is really important. Like, look at your own social footprint to give you a competitive advantage and let you walk the talk in
Yeah.
PR. That will go for, I think, for if you wanted to stand out when you're interviewing, and especially if you want to work at agencies, and then cultivate, as we say, we're just talking about relationships with media, influencers, other leaders. Take the time through volunteerism, social media engagement. Look at cultivating those assets as a PR practitioner so that you're more desirable than your competition.
Great answer. Do you see any integration of AI and technology impacting PR?
Yes, I think that with AI, and we have a lot of conversations in terms of how that is going to influence the PR discipline, and I think it's going to influence PR dramatically in every way. Is it, if you look at competing with humans in journalism, looking at how the rise of AI influencers today are going to stack up with human influencers, like in every aspect of our, um, toolbox, if you will, our communications, our marketing communications vehicles, I think will be impacted in every way.
Yeah.
Generative AI, everything.
With this security now in some cases with companies, and just most recently companies being hacked. Um, can you tell us of a time that you had to deal with the management of a crisis and what you learned from that experience?
Yes. um, Issues management, crisis communications. Um, I think it's being patient. It's grace under pressure, not getting rattled. For issues management, that is looking at your response, looking at preparation, and again, it depends on the category that escalates. There are different forms of issues management depending on the category. There's can be consumer packaged goods, issues management, retail, etc. Um, Looking at crisis communications, I think it's when I say grace under pressure, I'm referring to how to respond, what advice you're giving your client of when to respond, what is the response itself, what is the content. All of that's important in terms of strategically stick handling a story. I mean, if you look at today, we have cancel culture, for example. When we used to manage a crisis for a client many years ago, it could be rather contained. There wasn't the web to deal with. There wasn't influencers to deal with. Now it spreads immediately. So it's just that much more to manage and handle.
Well, I know you and I've had these conversations, and many times when I wanted to act on something, you've said, take your time, Frank, take a breath, and maybe it might disappear. And if it's still there, we'll talk about it tomorrow. And you've always been there to take on the tough situations. And at the end of the day, I've probably been much wiser by listening to you. So I want to thank you again for the opportunity to talk with you. I know that the audience today will find it very informative. And I want to thank you from NABS and from myself for taking the time today.
Thank you so much, Frank. I really appreciate it.